What is up, Aditi Surana? Welcome to another episode of the Vinamre Kasanaa show. Super excited that you're here.
Thank you so much, Vinamre. I must tell you, I really like your name. It's so interesting to have a Sanskrit name. I hope you take pride in it. I remember having
I
that as my first conversation with you.
Yeah, all I have is weird parts, embarrassment around it. Not really. I don't know because okay, if you like Vinamre, here's the other two contenders for the list:
Okay.
Sikandar and Yudhishthir.
Whoa! I
My
have never
parents
met
chose
a
Vinamre.
Yudhishthir, man. Like, oh yeah, Vinamre is good. You should be proud that you're Vinamre over any other name.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I wish I was named Sikandar though. It would be such a great story. Like I would always have a story to look back to, the myth of Alexander, that sort of thing. But
I
instead, all I have is
saw.
like, yeah, I mean, all I have is, what's your name mean? Oh, I'm polite. So
Oh.
that's pretty much it.
That also demands that you're polite all the time. So be aware of that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that. Since you are a graphologist, a person who analyzes people's personality based on their handwriting. Could you talk a bunch more about that?
So, handwriting analysis is about understanding and analyzing different parts based on the choices you make. So, for example, you remember in the school when you learned from your teacher, there were 30 students learning, and every single child developed his or her handwriting unique. The fundamental principle was to look at your handwritings look at your teacher's handwriting and merely copy it. But in that copying mechanism, you just shifted and you developed your own font. Now that variation that happened in everybody is the source of handwriting analysis. So all of us should have had similar print style of writing or similar cursive style of writing, but that didn't happen. So this is where the origin of variation began. Now, as you look at your own handwriting sample, you'll know it keeps changing. It was different when you were in school, in college years. Now it is different. And as you will grow, it will become different if you continue to write. The idea of that variation happens because as a person you're changing, and mostly the drastic shift happens when you move from school to college to post graduation. When you make go through life changes, your handwriting also changes. So that is the idea behind the whole process of psychoanalysis based on handwriting.
Yeah, I didn't expect that the handwriting is so intensely affected by the changes in your personality. But I do remember an instance from my own life where when I entered fourth grade, I was in a different school before, where we all practiced cursive writing. So we would rigorously do cursive writing. And I changed schools. And in fourth grade, I noticed that everyone was not writing in cursive. And as a result, not almost, I definitely broke the pattern of cursive writing and began writing in the style that I sent you, which has obviously gone through many changes because many years have
Sure.
passed. But it almost felt like I was deliberately trying to make sense of the world around me by fitting into what everyone else was doing because I was the only one writing in cursive. Like those, if you write a P and I would just elongate and curve the end of the P, which no one does because that's something that you see in like old scripts where they write like those fancy letters in like
Yeah.
old Roman, that sort of thing. So I didn't realize that that was because I was going through a change in my life, and that's so interesting. Do you
No,
approve?
actually, this
Yeah.
wasn't. This wasn't. What you're referring to is you copied a script and you went away from a script consciously. Here
Yeah.
you copied how other people were writing, which rarely happens. I'm talking about you don't make any attempt of changing your handwriting and it still changes. I'm referring to that part.
I
I'm
see.
gonna give me a moment. There is some
Go on.
noise here. I'm just gonna just get.
So yeah, I was saying, that's surprising that this was a conscious change, and that's rare. Um, in terms of psychoanalysis, do you approach graphology from just like when you're trying to analyze someone? Do you find that graphology itself is limiting, or do you have other tools that you use along with them?
Good, really nice question, I must say, because graphology is limiting. When you analyze somebody, people do not write often. Now we are in a zone where we only sign, and now with all the apps, we don't
You
even do
type.
that.
Yeah.
We type, and that is not the same mechanism of writing. So is it limiting? Yes, it is highly limiting when it comes to now your practice of writing. However, even if you haven't written for 10 years, 15 years, which most of my clients, they meet me at 35, 45, so they're like, I don't even remember when did I write properly last. But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Luckily it doesn't matter, because you have practiced that skill for 10 to 12 years. Your body knows how to write. So you struggle for
Mhm.
2 lines and then it takes over. So the handwriting sample is a good idea. But let me talk about the mechanism. When
Sure.
you look at graphology as a mechanism, it gives you insights, but it is not always a complete insight. So I always say that graphology, because it is so close to who you are, it allows me to probe you further, go deeper into your other issues that you're not aware of. So
Yeah.
in a counseling session, you will come and you'll talk about your problem, and I will hear you as a counselor. My assessment of your journey is based on your perception of your journey,
Interesting.
and I would not have many points to probe if I don't have an objective tool. So, graphology becomes my objective tool, which is not colored by your ideas. So, if you say that, for example, I'm a short tempered person and I get very angry, I look at your writing and I say, no, you're not short tempered person. You're just irritated for some time. Now, I would not agree with your short tempered behavior because I can see irritation and no short temper. So that's how it gives me a true perception of who you are, sometimes beyond your ideas. Secondly, I'm also trained in REBT, which is Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy. I'm trained as a high performance coach. There are modules and models people use to approach personality to enhance behavior.
Right.
Different psychometric tools, where different psychology models, which are based on Carl Jung's models. So, like
Oh,
in
kind
my
of Carl Jung.
profession, sorry, you are. I'm a big fan of him. I love his work. I
Yeah. So
love his
what is
work.
it exactly that you use that is made by Carl Jung? Because as far as I know, I mean, his most popular theories, sorry, concepts have to do with archetypes and the separation he made between anima, animus, ego, persona, all of those things. How does that apply to something that's very 21st century?
So he also created dichotomies. He created
Yeah.
dichotomies where he said you are either introvert or extrovert. He was the first person to coin the term introvert and extrovert back in the day, which eventually became introvert and extrovert now. And then he spoke about sensing, and he spoke about how you perceive information.
Yeah.
So that dichotomy is used in MBTI, which is Meyer-Briggs Type Indicator
I see.
psychometric tool.
Yeah. But it
So
isn't the
I am a
most accurate, right? The Meyer, there's been several debunkings of Meyer-Briggs saying that it isn't as accurate as, say, the Big Five trait scale or something like that.
I agree. I agree. And because the test is not that solid and it cannot predict exactly who you are, I use handwriting to support it. But the
I
model
see.
underneath that, see, there are two parts to it, right? There's a model on which the questionnaire is based. The questionnaire is not that solid, but the model is very solid. So all of us are, we do fall into either introvert or extrovert or ambivert. And if we
Yeah.
know that, we can use our personalities better. I always look at personality as a toolbox. I feel it is a suggestive idea. It is not a fixed idea, which most people think. If your personality is a fixed idea, then you have to, constantly believe that I cannot change and this is who I am. That's
Yeah.
not true. Your personality is ever changing. So if you know that, and if you have tools to look at yourself in the current scenario, you can enhance the utilization of this whatever mechanism that you have become. It's like using an app to its highest potential.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very funny when people become very rigid in who they are and what they believe, and the same patterns of behavior keep repeating for years on end. And
But also look at our society, right? We are recognized for our opinions. If you have an opinion and if you own it, we are celebrated for that. Now, being opinionated, it's fixation. Like if I constantly believe this is true and everything but that is not true, I'm
yeah.
celebrated. I have more social media followers. Media wants to hear me. All of that happens. So in one part of society where all your glorification comes from being a solid, sturdy person. And then you have this other part where that exact trait goes against you, and it
Yeah.
doesn't allow you to be ever changing, ever moving, flexible, adaptive, humble. It doesn't allow you to do that. So we are stuck because of that.
Yeah, there's so much. There are so many narratives ranging everywhere from the degree you do to the social media clout that you decide to approach. Everyone is asking you to niche down, to have an absolute opinion, to be on an absolute end of one spectrum. Whereas most people are paradoxes, like you pointed out. Most people are not okay with portraying indecision because it doesn't look as neat, and so they become products of polarization. And as a result, like
That's
you
so
said,
true. I believe a lot in being vulnerable. So if you have ever heard me speak, I would speak about personal failures. I would speak about
yeah,
stories where things didn't go well, because I feel we require authorities, or even if I'm contributing on my podcast in any way, like I have podcast with IVM called Absolutely Right, in which
yes,
when we speak to people, I bring in I speak about good things, but I speak about bad things and things that didn't work, because we require a mechanism in which we embrace failure. It's very, very important. That whole idea of hiding under some garb or a mask is what will get to us. And now, especially, we're recording this in the lockdown period. So you'll agree with me even more that the fact that we are stuck in our homes and there are no masks to wear, we are
yeah,
confronting ourselves very, very deeply. And most people don't like that part of their life. They're like, oh my god, I don't have any social media content, because if I am not without my mask, without my restaurants, without my hobbies, who am I exactly? And they don't know who they are.
yeah. That's so true. I mean, just the fact that even if you're sitting at home, you can still choose to deny what your life is inevitably welling up to the surface, and busy yourself in consuming and watching a bunch, just to dulling down whatever is coming to you. And it's often hard to approach yourself in solitude. I think we also, as a species, have not really had the same relationship with solitude that our predecessors had, and we're terribly bad at that, because it's very unflattering to see who you are naked with warts and all.
So, a part of my study and my personal interest lies in Eastern philosophies.
Interesting.
So, I Japanese to some part and Indian to a large part. So, more I study Indian philosophy, and we understand, and that's why Sanskrit is my favorite language, and that's why Vinamre was so important, and I really felt good about it. So we are based as an Indian philosophy. We are based, and philosophy is not a correct word. The overall, thinking process and way of living life through Indian mechanism
Yeah.
uh, has been about being with yourself, independent of any label. So if you go slightly spiritual, if you go slightly inwards, it is all about shedding your labels. It is going beyond what you thought was your fixated idea.
Hmm.
So when we do that, we literally, and that's why personalities and identification with anything becomes more and more difficult as you go and keep holding to that idea.
Yeah, isn't it something like where Carl Jung had this idea of the individuation process, which he considered to be the most valuable process in your life, even though this is a Western parallel completely. But he said that your whole idea in life is to arrive at the individual you naturally are, but you're trapped beneath layers. It's not about grappling to rise up, but more like sinking down to who you actually are.
Yeah. And let me tell you two things about him. One, he was an introvert. So he spent a lot of time being alone and introspecting, which was literally like meditating and disconnecting from all your labels. And
Yeah.
second part is he was inspired by Eastern philosophies also. So he has studied Indian scriptures, he had studied Chinese and Japanese work. And I think in the late 50s or 60s of his life, he did some contributive work on not Indian, but Eastern philosophies, for which he was highly criticized by the Western world.
Why? Because he was domaining outside of his niche as a psychologist. Yeah.
Also, he was not being the cool, rational thinker, according to them,
Right.
which they
Cold,
took great
calculating,
pride.
decisive.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Aditi, what do you think about this? I mean, since you do this for a living, you're a graphologist and also a high performance coach. These are things, these are roles that you perform in your own life. Um, do you at any point feel a dissonance where you don't feel like being a coach and you don't feel like being this expert that everyone has, put you to be, and these are the steps you've naturally taken toward in your life? If you have that dissonance, what do you do?
So I one live alone. So
Hmm.
I have a lot of time by myself, and I think
Yeah.
that is my way of surviving. Because now I am with my mom, and like when, especially for the lockdown, she's over, and but so when I am with other people, the constant need to communicate or deal with it. You are a coach. Once you are a coach, you're always a coach.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I hate that part at times. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But there is always a method in which you can disconnect. So I do activities where I do not record. So I take a lot of courses that I learn from other people. It could be cooking, it could be gardening, and I'm like this one person who would, like, I'm perpetual student. So when I get into a student role, I cannot be a coach. Also, I go and take silence retreats. So I observe silence twice a month on a regular basis, and if not, I take 10 days off from work and I just observe silence
When
outside
you're saying
Bombay.
silence, you mean something like vipassana meditation?
Not Vipassana. I haven't done Vipassana, but I go to other ashrams and
Yeah.
in Rishikesh and Coimbatore. I go to other ashrams and I spend time by myself. So, the whole idea of living by yourself is very, very important. And especially when you are rendering a platform for other people to think and become
Yeah.
their sounding board, you need to find your grounding, because you can't differentiate between their thinking and yours all the time. You
Right.
are constantly becoming neutral, and constantly, that's, I feel, is a coach's job, very, very important one, and difficult at times, is to be neutral to any opinion that you may have, and reflect it towards you and reflect it back to you in a way that you can look at it, and then you
Yeah.
realize, oh, this is correct and this is incorrect. But while doing that, I can't have my own opinion supporting it, unless until you are not ready. The very moment you are ready, then I have to be directive and change my approach. So that is always playing. It's almost like dancing with a partner all the time. There is
Yeah.
no structure to the process. You're If I have a preconceived idea on anything, any project, any client, then that project doesn't work well. But when I'm willing to play and go anywhere that you wish to go, those are most amazing coaching sessions or programs I have gone through. When you see results that both of us had no clue about. So
Yeah.
that is the great work, right? So that happens only when you can be neutral. And to be neutral, you have to have no opinion. And if you think, if you talk, if you're constantly giving instructions, you do have opinions. So for me, silence is my rescue.
Wow.
And meditation for sure, like a daily practice of yoga and meditation. I'm sounding like a super Indian spiritual person, but I must tell you, there are really effective ways. So I do transcendental meditation. Last
Yeah.
9.5 years of practice of TM, and most highly effective people have followed around the world TM as their productivity tool, not their spirituality tool, but a productivity tool. So it is a brain hack.
Yeah, I mean, I can swear by the habit of meditation as being life changing, especially for a racing mind, but then also to center and ground yourself. It's a cliche because for some reason the self help improvement industry is slowly catching up to almost every other industry. So it does feel like everyone's trying to spout this, but it's absolutely true. And also, transcendental meditation is fascinating. I know Ray Dalio, the guy who wrote Principles, the book, he does it.
Okay.
He talks about it. That's when I first heard about it. And what you said about having to sort of sort yourself out so you can be neutral in your sessions and then allow you and the client to arrive at this state of wonder, or arrive at a solution that you did not expect, um, reminds me very closely about this idea that the healer must heal first in order to heal properly. There are several motifs around, the damaged healer, where the healer is trying to heal everyone, but then the massive repression of their own lack of healing just goes so much that one day they burst out. So I think it's very important to have
I
that.
also feel, sorry to interrupt you, but I also feel that happens to healers who believe they can heal. I
Hmm,
fundamentally don't believe in that. I don't think I have any capacity to heal anybody. I
interesting.
feel you and I, and every person I speak with is part of one story. If I'm part of your narrative, you're part of mine. So the very moment I take the superior role of healing you, I'm doomed. But if I look at the conversation and see how can I serve, how can I truly bring the best for both of us, and where can I take this journey, I am not trying to tell you anything. I'm not trying to provide a solution. I'm trying to render a platform. And that is very, very different than providing a solution. Because when I'm willing to render a platform, I'm willing to go any length to explore boundaries that I haven't uh, experienced myself. Being a healer, I'm supposed to give you a solution and then I have to fix you. That I feel is very, I'm sorry, but I find that slightly unkind, because I
Hmm.
feel that means I am here and you're there. That doesn't work. I think the
Wow.
the fact.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're spot on in saying that, because I have a very strong aversion to giving advice, because I feel like, who am I to? There's something that Hunter S. Thompson wrote in his letter to say that it's a very dangerous uptaking to give a man advice and point to the direction and say you should do that.
Who are you? That's a wonderful question, and that has been my quest. Actually, when I began handwriting, I was 18 and a half as a professional,
Yeah,
and people liked what I said, and I was accurate. So when I was 14, I chanced upon some like it's a very small thing. My dad sent me to a personality development course, and the teacher
interesting.
asked, "How many zeros can you draw in a minute?"
Ah,
To all of us, and we drew
right.
zeros, and we were excited. We set a number, and we said 100, and some people could only reach 80. Some people said 150, and they did more. So the teacher said, "Okay, let's look at it. This is how you gauge yourself. You either underestimate, overestimate, and that's what it is." The test was simple. It was like simple tool. I looked at those zeros and something happened. Like my mind started telling me patterns and showing me things. And it was almost like, how animation happens in movies where you can
Yeah,
see things which are otherwise not available to naked eyes. That's what
yeah.
happened. So I looked at those samples and I started telling my friends, oh, you organize your cupboard like this, or you behave like this. And all of us were surprised what was happening.
This was
So
intuitive.
yeah, it was intuitive. So I got slightly more comfortable. I went home. I made everybody my guinea pigs and made everybody do that. It was even more accurate there because I also knew these people. So I was more comfortable and slightly confident. Then I went out and did with strangers that same technique. It worked. So in no time, I realized there's some correlation. I chanced upon graphology, I think 1.5, 2 years after that. But in the process, I kept observing the stroke formation unknowingly because of that experience that I have had. And then graphology happened. I started working as a professional at 18. My father didn't agree with my career choice. So, unlike Indian fathers, he asked me to leave the house. He said,
Wow.
मेरे घर से निकल जाओ. So I also was so passionate, I left the house. So I became a professional to support my education. I had to do everything on my own. So so people asked me questions because I was too young to answer their questions. I wondered, what can I say?
Yeah,
I had accuracy in assessment, but I had no accuracy in life experience. So I had no clue what I could tell them about them, like how to fix the problem. So I looked at graphology as a solution. So I said, if I turn a stroke in a certain manner, will that shift their behavior? That was my inquiry. And I tried and I tested and I experimented, and it worked. It worked, and graphotherapy, which is a major part of my work right now, got invented because I was lacking the ability to answer the exact question that you said. who am I to answer? Because I had no life experience or resources to count on. I also did other certifications that I was talking about, like getting trained in counseling, REBT, psychometric tools, and other international courses in different modes of or modalities of approaching human mind, because it's an ever growing quest to figure out what can I tell that would be the most apt possibility for the person, not the solution, but a possibility. What can we do here that you and I were not aware before this?
Yeah, it's more about how you can help them solve their own problems by showing them possibilities and potential probabilities, instead of saying, I only teach one method, impose this method upon you like a screwdriver trying to fit a screw in a peg that does not fit. I really like that.
Also, also it's romantic because when you do not know, you are constantly exploring. So every new person, so this happens to me every time I look at a handwriting, even talk about it, I start blushing. And I don't know why this happens, but this is like, I feel it's so cute, but it just like it happens. Like I genuinely start blushing because for me it is that curiosity and that journey where I do not know. So imagine every day you fall in love with something that you do, and I touch wood. I hope it continues to happen. But yeah, that's what happens. So when you are non-conclusive, life is really different.
I can sense the elevated vibrations right now through the screen, and I can definitely understand. I can see how it's transferring to me as well, because I think you've been absolutely hardworking enough to figure out what is it that you like enough that it makes you smile and explore and say, oh, I was this yesterday, I'm this today. It's this constant
Yeah.
journey of unlearning who you are and then relearning something new about yourself.
And I remember a phase in my life where I became like the so-called very sure person, and I
Yeah.
knew what to change in your, like, how when you get early success, you think you got it, and you're like super cool, and you can give
Yeah.
solutions to people, and they come to my office and they ask me questions. All this like really massages your ego. And I was so unhappy, Vinamra. I can't tell you. I was like horribly unhappy in that phase when technically I should have been happier. Everything that I dreamt of as I think 19-year-old, which I thought I would do by 25, by 35 was already happening when I was 25,
Yeah.
and I was unhappy. So I went through. I took a sabbatical where I spent a lot of time studying and breaking my ideas of me down completely, including, I must say this, I rarely speak about this, but including changing my name. So my given name by my dad was Chandra Prabha. If you think your
That's
parents,
a fascinating name.
imagine, but I liked the name, but it was, and that was my brand. So I built my earlier work in graphology on that brand, Chandra Prabha, and I built it. And by 26, when I was in that phase where I found so stuck up about it, I took a break and I renounced every single identification that I held as mine. And then I realized my idea of me, which was my name, was the biggest identification. It was the toughest journey to disassociate with your own identity that you put in so much of effort. Like I left my house, I thought it became even darker. Like when you want to prove something, you like hold on to your idea a lot. So I chose to let that go, and I chose Aditi, which means unbounded. So the word Aditi is unbounded. So I chose my name when at a point where people choose a kid's name. When I was 26, instead of choosing a name for my child, which I don't have, but I chose a name for myself, and it was a rebirth. So that,
Wow.
yeah,
So if I had met Chandraprabha today, it would be a different conversation altogether.
I don't know. I think you wouldn't have met her only. Like she wouldn't
Oh,
have survived through all of this. She would have been this
wow.
frustrated. Would have like probably, I don't know what she would have done.
Hey, this is
But
all
I
so
did,
inspiring. I just I usually I don't get speechless on my podcast. I usually have some clever quip to move the conversation forward. But wow, you just decided to abandon everything that was essentially a pillar on what your identity was built on and start afresh. Um, in terms of that, didn't people from your life come and say, reinforce who you are again and again? Wasn't that like, didn't they say, but you are this and you've always been like this, and parents do that, especially friends do that. They hold you to certain psychological timestamps that they last knew you of, and then you change. You can do a 2-year period where you're away from everyone, and then you change, but then they still remember you from 2 years ago, and they're like, oh, you're this. And then most people just settle into what people, put them in, the boxes they put them in.
And this is where you're correct, and that's a great observation. But this is the exact point where I decided to break free every now and then. So when
Huh.
I've created routines, I've created mechanisms, or almost like pointers where I know I'm falling back. All of us do, because it's comforting. It's comforting to go back and sulk, and comforting to say that, oh my God, this is not working. Please fix me. But I realized that the journey that I really wish to take, and in this association. So when you build a brand, and if the brand is you, and you will know this in some time as you will become more and more recognized for your brand, you cannot disassociate from the brand all the time. You start believing that the failure and success that the brand has is yours. And if you're successful, you believe all the success that is happening, that is yours. So that association is very natural but very harmful to keep yourself grounded and focused. So many artists go through that. Many high performers go through that. So being able to make a decision that is independent of all the issues can only and only happen when you know that whether it becomes correct or incorrect, your job is to do the best in the moment. Your job is not take or to take the ownership for the entire piece, but generally we believe that if it goes correct, it's going to be my identification, my stamp. So when you don't do that, people around you start realizing it. Also, it takes training to help other people cope up with the new person that you have become. So I think apologizing helps many a times, because they are so used to that older part. And my favorite line is, I'm sorry, I agree that you expect this from me, uh,
Yeah.
but as a person I have changed, and I don't think that is working anymore. So it requires a lot of negotiation, but I feel if you give them a better deal than the previous deal that you have made as a person, and if they are on the winning end, people like it. So you have to go back and redo your agreements with people, which all
Yeah.
of us have. All of us have agreements with all relationships that we are into,
Absolutely.
non-verbal and verbal at times, but we do have those agreements.
Yeah, I like how dynamic the relationships in my own life are. We'll constantly go through these phases of renegotiating our boundaries, and it usually comes.
It's amazing.
It could be something as simple as someone giving more truth than what is typically expected of them, which then turns over a new leaf and sometimes opens up new wounds. And there's this period of short-term discomfort followed by a better understanding of who you are. Like I remember my parents. I'm saying this on the podcast for the first time. My parents were against my sister dating, even though they're pretty liberal. And I told them flat out, I was like, you're just afraid we're going to have lots of sex. And I was surprised by what I said. And it's like, because we reached that level where I could be that honest with them, there was this temporary discomfort saying that you've spoiled yourself, blah 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 blah. It was followed by more understanding of who we are as people. I think we should all strive to say more uncomfortable things in our relationships, and just be able to
Uh,
manage the short term. Yeah, you were saying something.
So Brené Brown, I just wanted to add to your point. Brené Brown, who is this world thought leader, global thought leader on vulnerability, speaks
Hmm.
about this point a lot. She says, "I chose at some point to choose discomfort in the moment than feeling sorry for a long time." When you choose discomfort in every conversation, every relationship, and it requires bravery. It requires courage to do that. We think courage is going out there and fighting big battles. Not always. Sometimes courage is about literally saying this to your parents and telling them that, okay, this is what I want to do. And even if you don't agree right now. So my father, who didn't agree with my career choice because he was highly concerned about how will I survive, what exactly will I do, eventually saw my point and came came around. It took 6 years, and it took a lot of struggle because I didn't have home to go back to and all of that initially. But he came around. So, but if you give away your authentic truth, nobody can come around, because nobody will know what the truth is, including yourself. Because if you don't experiment, you don't go through that journey, there is no way you will ever experience something that is so magical. And
Yeah. Wow.
oh.
That's, I mean, it's so, like, I know for a fact that there's this guy called Gary Vee. You've probably seen him on social media a bunch of times. He said something very wonderful about, if you are from an Eastern European family and everyone's stoic, stolid, not stoic, just stoic, and there's not an I love you culture, you be the one to start. It's going to feel weird when you just, it's like saying I love you to a wall, because your parents are not good at expressing emotions or that sort. But it's like eventually it's going to become your reality. It's like break the chain of generational trauma, or break the chain of dysfunctionality by taking the uncomfortable step. um yeah.
I can't agree with you more. So in the lockdown, when I started this whole process coming, I realized the amount of anxiety, and I'm getting goosebumps even while speaking about it. The amount of anxiety people are hoarding, not even like holding, they're hoarding. They said, one day I will get rid of it. Let me hold on to it because it is familiar. I don't know anything else. Let me hold on to this discomfort
Yeah.
of fear, of I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'll deal with it and what will happen to me. Because when you identify so much, just to build on our conversation, with your job, with your relationship, with the money that you have, with everything, when your identity is built on everything outside of you, you have nothing to hold on to. And then you are highly anxious. The anxiety builds up to a point that anything moving, anything being taken away, feels you losing yourself. The very moment you is not idle, you as a person, you as a being is not only in these things, then we don't have that same struggle. Then even a part of it disappears, goes away, then you can look at it and you say, okay, I require to build it again because I care for it, but it
Yeah.
is not from a damaged space. So as a generation, we need to change that. So I am asking people right now to journal. And
Yeah.
journaling has three parts, and you might have seen those Instagram lives that we are doing. So it's a conversation like this where I dive deep, and diving deep is truly diving deep to see exact points on certain issues and not hiding it from yourself. Then using graphotherapy, which is a stroke specifically designed for you to feel calmer
Hmm.
and more patient with yourself, because we are constantly moving from one point to another. We have this switching mind,
Yeah.
and for your mind to feel calmer, it requires completion. So if you are speaking with somebody, you feel happy or heard only when you complete your point. If you're speaking something and if you do not feel I conveyed everything I had to, you don't feel satisfied about that conversation. So I'm using handwriting as a way of reversing that quick shift with the help of a stroke called flow of thoughts. And we're building on that. And then the third part is I ask a question that you're supposed to handwrite your journal with. So when you handwrite, and it's very important, not when you digitally type,
Yeah.
handwritten journaling helps you edit your thought already before writing instead of editing it after you write it. You review every emotion when you state it. So all these parts happen when you use handwritten journaling. So I'm doing this workshop, and it's a free attempt. It's the first time whenever I'm doing it in public
Hmm.
as a group activity, because I'm so used to one-on-one and going intense based on that person's expectations and requirements and doing the dance. Is this group dancing? I am just first time I experimented with, but I also felt we needed to do that. One, you cannot, like, I feel I have these resources that people can use, and if not now, then when? Like if
That
people
would,
need it
yeah.
right now, and if I don't rise up to the occasion, what's the point of calling yourself someone who can serve and who can help? You're all bullshit if you don't do that.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I was going to say, so when you said something, and by the way, the listeners, you can check out all her work on Aditi Surana at Instagram, where she has all assortments of exercises. I think you're also doing a 21-day, 15-minute consultation, something like that, right? Where,
So we offered actually 104 slots
yeah,
over 21 days in that program, but in first 6 days, all of them are booked. So now we are on a waiting list. Everybody, like whomever, even if you're listening much after that, and if you're interested, I
yeah,
realize the need where I need to open these slots because the kind of floodgates I opened in just short 15 minutes conversations were amazing, and people got insights into their whole conflict because I could use handwriting as a tool to look at. And as I said, your perception might not be the reality. And when I said, no, but I don't agree with your perception of your problem, but why don't you look at it from this angle? It just like broke that huge construction that they carefully made about all the facade that they were holding onto. And it was beautiful to watch. It was just a treat. So that's what, and the tools. So you not only do that, you break the facade, and then you have journaling and graphotherapy as a tool to walk people with. So
yeah.
I'm going to keep these recordings and videos online available also because I want people, whomever is interested, must have ways to shift. And I feel that's the power we have today. I feel we have the power to reach out to anybody, unlike any other time. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that's why we're doing this podcast. All it takes is a message,
yeah.
right? And you just have to have the right intentions. Talking about breaking facades, let's break my facade. Let's see how bad is it.
Uh-huh. I was
Am I going to cry?
waiting for you to get to that point. I don't know. That's not my attempt, but that might be your choice.
Okay.
So,
So
good.
as Aditi is scrolling through my handwriting sample, let me give you guys some context. I sent her a writing sample, which she will now dissect on this podcast and tell me if I am who I think I am, or if I am just a bunch of walking lies. I don't know. Kind of nervous, kind of excited.
So, Vinamra, first thing that comes to my mind when I look at your handwriting is your ability to intuitively look at scenarios. So there are things in life where you use logic to convince people. Also, you can rely on other people's knowledge and your research. That matters to you a lot. And you can build your opinion based on that, which is a good thing. And you identify a lot with that. You believe if I have a problem, I can always go and find a solution. I'll find the best possible hack. I'll connect to people and I'll get this done. But what you discount most of the time is the intuitive insight that you already have, for which you do not require research. So if you tap into that intuition, you might be able to build your research even at a in more effective way, at a deeper level. You can dive deep and allow that intuition to guide you. And that is a skill that you'll have to develop. Right now, it is available, but you're not developing it. So that's the skill that you require to develop.
Yeah, all my horoscopes say that, and I also believe that. Whenever I meditate, I will find that I have the answers, but there is some part of me that always, I guess, identifies with being the researcher, the one that reaches out and collects from the outside world to make sense of what is happening. Wow, Aditi, you're spot on with that.
uh, when you look at your life, it is always a long term plan, at least 7 to 10 years down the line. You don't do short term things, and that's why it's difficult for you to work and deal with people of similar age group. You struggle to have friends and deeper conversations with them. So I feel your podcast is also your way to not remain stuck in, in the conversation with the similar topics and same things. And okay, let me go and talk to people who do not belong to my world, and I can actually learn from them, and I can identify what else can I find about myself through these conversations. So to all his listeners, let me tell you, we are all his guinea pigs, only so that he grows and moves forward. So yeah, we caught you
Hey, everyone, discount the description I've written for the podcast. It's the actual truth. Just quote it. Wow.
So let me tell you something that you must work upon.
Okay.
Okay, so you start with many ideas that you want to implement. You get very excited about it, and there are two parts to every project, right? One is
Yeah.
the conceptualizing, strategizing, intellectual part. Your favorite part of the story. You love it. You are like there. You do 100% and more. I was about to say 200%, but if I say that, I don't understand percentage concept at all. So then you literally, and then when it comes to execution, you put the same energy out there in first 10% and then 20% and 30%. And you reach a point where you're like, oh, I wish to do more, but now I think anyone else can do it. So it's okay. Let me just
Yeah.
delegate or forget about it. So that inconsistency is something you must definitely look at and learn from
Yeah.
other people. So have execution models, role models, other people who are very good at it. So I feel when you have better understanding of the world than most people around you, it also comes with some misunderstanding. You believe if you understood it, you got it. There is
Yeah.
beauty, there is power, there is commitment, one different kind of commitment one requires to execute things and execute things every single day. Very important. So we believe that if I have an idea, it's good and I can do it. No, that is only there is a possibility for you to do it. You can do it only when you have patience and wherewithal and resilience to do it on a daily basis or a regular basis, and to take that action. And you guys, in the lockdown phase also, you might have realized to clean your house every day, to cook every day. We take all these things for granted and we believe, oh yeah, I have food and I don't like this, and all of that we do. But to do that every day, and all the people who do it on a regular basis without failing, we must understand it takes efforts and for any execution. So for you, it's a big red flag that all ideas might not come true, but you have to give some experimental time period for it.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely a chaser of novelty and new ideas primarily. It's more about if I've done 30%, 40% of it, it just means that I can do the rest of it. So my mind just resolves. If I can do the rest of it, I don't need to do it. Someone else can do it. The exclusivity of that idea, that approach is gone. So let me try to do something completely different now. What that leads me with is when people ask me, how do you start a new project? I'm like, that's the easiest part. You can start any project. I can start 100
How do
projects.
you complete? Yeah, how do you
Right.
complete the project that you have taken?
Exactly. Wow. Yep. Yep.
And the second red flag
Yeah.
is emotionally, you're more sensitive than most. So when you are when you're hurt or when you get upset or you don't.
Aditi. I think I'm losing you on the audio. It's maybe because you've turned the mic or something. The audio just went like bad.
Can
Hello.
you hear?
I
Hello,
can.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, better. Let
Yeah.
me repeat that one.
Yeah.
So when you get emotionally hurt or disturbed, it is very difficult for you to get out of that hurt. It keeps playing on your mind unendingly, and it is interesting for you to believe that you can linger on an emotion for so long. It is a constant process of lingering on it. It's not one day, it's not a short term. So until and unless you haven't resolved it. Now that also drives your, so all the logic, all the research, all the intuition goes out of the window, and the emotion takes over when you are upset and hurt. And then you
Yeah.
make decisions which are, I wouldn't say counterproductive, but driven by emotions without any thought process underneath that. So
Yeah.
you require to look at those areas for sure. And emotions as such, they are volatile. So one requires to find your own language to deal with it. We all go through it, and it is everyday process. You can't be emotionally stable full stop. You are, if you're willing to really do some work in the world, good or bad, whatever, the very moment you interact with people, they bring in emotions and you start feeling it and you start responding to what is happening. To truly figure out what you wish to do and how to deal with your emotion, you have to create a language which is your language to understand your emotion. Very, very important.
Wow.
Speechless again. So on my show, when people go through this, and because it is called Absolutely Right, I ask them to hold this the board which says Absolutely Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, guys.
In my mind, I was saying I will at least raise one disagreement that I will think through. But I feel like what you said about this emotional sensitivity that allows me to have certain thoughts and feelings of hurt or otherwise permeate my mind longer than most people is absolutely true. I feel like in the morning, once I have the right amount of momentum for positive activities and habits, I can be, the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, something like that. That story where it's
No.
so this guy or like the Hulk, like in the day he's like this nice scientist guy, right? And at night, like his evil or shadow part turns on that does stuff that makes no sense. And in the morning, it's like, I'm gonna try and do these good things again. But in the night, it's like everything just goes to out of the window because obviously the emotions take over. Wow.
But I must use another example of X-Men. You remember in the training period where they have all these capacity and they have all their emotions, no, not emotion, all their energies going haywire, and then they
Yeah.
train themselves. And Dr. Charles trains, I think everybody, yeah, almost everybody, and he makes sure that they learn how to intensify the capacity without damaging. Now that is your work to do. So instead
Yeah.
of comparing yourself with Hulk, who has this uncontrollable need to behave like that, I feel Hulk may think like that, or probably other X-Men can think like that, but you really have to figure out your channelizing, and that's
Yeah.
the training.
Yeah, and I think that applies to many young people as well. The maturation process requires a level of being able to uh, go from scattered energies to focused energies because we're brimming with so much energy, and I count you in that, by the way. Like in the age group, um,
Okay.
that's very important for us to focus on honing in on what we do best without letting like the idea of like you're doing something very dangerous and also rewarding, but then a fly comes onto your skin and you just lose it completely, right?
I think that can only happen when again, let's find something that we are passionate about. But the very moment you start identifying with it, you become superior. All of
uh,
us have to keep this in mind. The very moment you become superior and that project is more important than the fly, that's a test. I remember this Gautam Buddha story that somebody came and this person was very upset because his child had joined Gautam Buddha's program, and he renounced everything, and the father was very, very upset, and he came and he spat on Buddha's face. Now Buddha was standing there, and Ananda, who was his disciple, got really wild, and he said, how could you take it? This is not acceptable. How could he say this? How could he do that? And Buddha said, thank you to that person. Thank you for giving me and my friend Ananda the opportunity to see how far we are on our journeys. So the fact that spitting of that person's as an act triggered Ananda, told Ananda and Buddha what Ananda requires to do to be on that journey. So fly or no fly. You remember that line from Kung Fu Panda that he says, peach or no peach, noodles or no noodles. When he's really upset and he's like, what should I do under the peach tree? And he's thinking whether I should go back to my father's business and do the noodle restaurant, or should I just
yeah.
stick to being a warrior? So he says, once you are clear with that journey, it doesn't matter whether you do noodles, no noodles, it doesn't matter. But identification is the problem. Like constantly feeling, I am this, I am that, I must do it. So all of that you're doing, I think also the younger generation, and I'm saying younger, which is like the new working generation, like post college, the
Yeah.
new people between 25 to 30. when they start exploring themselves, they believe that they require to quickly find themselves out there, which is a
Yeah.
great thing. But let's not discount the learning curve. Every single thing. So I still believe in 10,000 hours. You may hack it and make it 7,000 hours, and
Hmm.
hack it and make it, make it 5,000 hours. But you have to give number of hours before you say that I have claimed it, owned it. Then only you can know the nuances, and
Yeah.
very important.
I will say this. I mean, this is a conversation for another podcast, but the 10,000 rule has been completely, at least partially, debunked by this other guy called David Epstein. He has a book called Range, which talks about, yes, you may be able to have the 10,000 hours, but it doesn't have to be in one field. It could be some very complex, unrelated fields, but the idea is to put in the work, irrespective of whether it's like one specific field or a bunch of fields. But yeah, is that the end of the handwriting analysis?
If you have more questions, I can continue.
um, you talked about anxiety, and and I know for a fact that there's this idea about how some people, fuck, there's some pop psychology idea that some people say that if you have bad handwriting, it's because your thoughts are faster than your hand, something along those lines. And you, as a professional graphologist, is that true or not?
I don't think so. I think like doctors have told me this, that we write very fast and the handwriting becomes illegible, which is like almost like lines and some dots and like dashes here and there. Now
Yeah.
that is it has two parts. If your handwriting is faster than your mind, that means your mind is racing and you are trying to save so much. It's not about
Yeah.
handwriting. The racing mind is also not saying so much on multiple topics. It is rephrasing one thing multiple times. If you look at it, the calmer mind, the more effective mind would say one sentence and would convey exactly what you want to say without having to rephrase it and repeat it. And like, so busy is not productive always. Productive and busy could be the case, but so many times believe that people believe that if they're busy, if they're filled with activities, their day is productive. So that's what happens with handwriting, which are illegible, where the quality of the writing or the thought or the life is being compromised under the excuse of speed. You must look at
Holy shit.
it.
The excuse of speed that compromises, your own calmness because you
Quality
want to get it out there
and quality.
fast. Yeah, and
Yes.
quality. Yeah, I mean, fuck, I've always been of the school of thought of speed, and fast, 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 fast. But I do realize the counter perspective now, that it leaves out the essence of who you are. You're trying to be fast, but then you sacrifice on quality and you become shoddy and sloppy. And yeah.
So in Sanskrit, there's a word called prayatna shaithilya, which is loosely translated in English as effortlessness. But it is
Yes.
not in Sanskrit. It is not effortlessness. It means prayatna, which is effort, and shaithilya, which means shithil, which is non-existent. So you pick up an activity and you master it to a point where now you don't have to put in any effort. So it has
Mm.
become so established in you that you don't have to put in extra effort for this to be the perfect expression of you. Now, that is what you want to achieve. It is not speed or quality. You want to become a master in that activity in such a way that you pick up speed and you also pick up the quality and you do it together. Now, that, according to me, requires practice.
Aditi, I'm going to have you on for a 3-hour podcast once this quarantine ends.
That will do that.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think I have a lot of work to do now. I genuinely
Yes.
look forward to just
and
end
and
this
even to the
conversation.
listener, I would uh, suggest only one thing if I have to. Like when you look at yourself, like take projects, take activities on a regular basis which would put you in discomfort, and see how you react. Pick those activities. It could be your workout, it could be your work related project, but discomfort and your ability to deal with discomfort is your skill to grow. We believe that we have to be more and more comfortable, and what I'm
Yeah.
saying is counterintuitive in that sense. But if you do that, if you literally keep honing your skill to be uncomfortable, throw your learned mechanism off for at least for a stipulated period, and pick up new mechanisms and see what you want to do and how you discover yourself, that is your way to go about this journey. And that would be really, really amazing for you if you do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that people should be able to open up their genetic potential that is trapped within them because they've been doing the same things over and over again for years on end. Wow, Aditi Surana, this has been a blast to have you on this podcast. So people can find me on Instagram at Aditi Surana, right? That's ADITISURANA. Where else? Do you have another social that you would like to plug right now?
No, Instagram is good. My website is aditisurana.com. And
Yeah.
guys, whatever you can, if you have questions regarding anxiety, we are doing a lot of free resource right now, including the podcast that I do called Absolutely Right, which is on IVM Podcast or Apple, Google, Geo7, anywhere you can find.
Yeah.
Do ask your questions, and let me find best possible ways to find solutions for that.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. And I'll
Thank
see
you,
you on the other
Vinamre.
side.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.